Good morning, all. Today we are going to talk about the paper, the lecture series, which is in continuation of what we have done earlier. This is largely on the income and substitution effect. This lecture is basically from the chapter 5 of Walter Nicholson and Snyder. So, as a discussion point, you can actually cross refer, and this is also given in the slide format of them. So what is actually I'm going to do is actually the kind of understanding which this substitution effect stocks under this head, and in fact in the previous lecture most of this part been covered. Therefore I would be skipping many of the portions from this lecture, and I will be basically concentrate on those aspects which we have to discuss in this case. So we have already seen that if there is a change in price takes place, then that is automatically going to have an effect on the quantity demanded, and this is what has been shown in this particular uh, lecture, in fact in this particular slide in fact. So suppose if the price has fallen of X, that implies a shift from A to B. That is what is actually the case. So correspondingly, if you want to at least go at a higher level in a given pace, then normally you will be moving to a U2 indifference curve. So that is what is the total increase in X when you talk about the price change as a result. So what we are going to do is to isolate the substitution effect, we hold real income constant. So in order to make the substitution difference, what we are doing is actually keeping the real income constant. So what is the parallel shift? That is the one commodity's price which is actually moved the price curve towards right, that we will have a tweak and make a parallel contribution, which is what is going to give a kind of the substitution effect. That is in the same level of utility, how much is now is required to have in a parallel line in that sense. So what is actually, if a commodity is a normal one, then this is going to be the case. So that is what has been shown in the point between A and C. So this is, that portion is what is called the substitution effect in that sense. So the total effect is now being divided as income effect, which is the remaining portion of A and the difference between A and C and A and B, which was in the previous slide we have seen. So the substitution effect, the movement from point A to point C, the individual substitution good X for good Y, because it is now relatively cheaper in that sense. So this is what is called the income effect. So you have an A, C, B now, and AC is what is called the substitution effect, and the CB is called the income effect. So real income changes as we said. So if X is a normal good, the individual will buy more because real income increase and the commodity is seen to be a real one. So if there is a price increase takes place in that sense, that is we see that there is a thing, then you have a negative substitution effect, even it is a basically a normal commodity. So in the case of the price of X means that the budget constraints get steeper, and the substitution effect is the movement from A to C point, and the income effect is movement from point C to B. So this is what is the difference. So substitution is on the AC point, and then income effect is what is called the CB difference. So this is what is normally we understand, and the price change for normal good, if a good is normal, substitution and income effect reinforces one another. When price falls, both effects leads to a change in quantity demanded. When price rises, both effects lead to a drop in quantity demanded. So if the good is inferior, substitution and income effect move on in or move in opposite direction. The combined effect is therefore determinate the thing, that is, when price rises, the substitution effect leads to a drop in quantity demanded, but the income effect is opposite in that case. When price falls, the substitution effect therefore leads to a rise in quantity demanded, but the income effect is opposite to that. So this is what is about the inferior commodity, which was not the case with the earlier normal commodity, which we had already discussed. So therefore no point of further elaborating it. In case you can actually have a query on it. So if the income effect of a price change is strong enough, there could be a positive relationship between price and quantity demand. This is what is called Giffen case. So an increase in the price leads to a drop in real income. Therefore, it's in one way to understand, or to say that since the good is inferior, a drop in income causes a quantity demand to price. So this is an interesting point which is Giffen was made, and this is what is called the paradoxical situation. This paradox is a paradox of the normality of the original demand price relation. Okay, so in the initial period before Giffen's point, what is actually the case is the following, that is, it is always been said that when there is a fall in price, there is an increase in the quantity demanded of that commodity, and vice versa, where there is an increase in the price and the quantity demand will fall. But this general belief was now being negated by the fact that there are certain commodities which is having the reverse effect. That is, even if that means even if the price of that commodity falls, the quantity demanded for that commodity may not be actually increasing. So this kind of commodity is what is called the Giffen commodity. So this is what is actually makes this particular concept a paradox to that of the original uh, demand condition, or whatever demand price relation in that sense. So to sum up, that the utility maximization therefore implies that a fall in price leads to an increase in the quantity demanded. So the substitution effect causes more to purchase as individual moves along the indifference curve, whereas the income effect causes more to be purchased, because the resulting rise in purchasing power allows the individual to move to a higher indifference curve. So this is all about the individual demand curve, which is also we have discussed in the previous lectures on individual demand portion. So I'm not going to spend on that. This part we have already discussed from variant. Therefore, I'm not going to discuss this in this way. It's almost same. So what is actually we need to focus here is a demand function which is having the effect which we just tried to derive earlier, that the substitution effect as such, that is the compensated demand curve, which is Hicksian understanding, that is a compensated Hicksian demand curve, shows that the relationship between the price of a good and the quantity purchased, assuming that other prices and utilities are held constant. This is actually much later than what has been Slutsky talked about. So Slutsky's finding on the substitution effect was much earlier than what Hicks was conceptualized in the late 30s or early 40s and all, popularized in the university in England. So in fact, that is maybe one way to look the problem differently. But however, the original substitution understanding was being derived and mathematically proved by Slutsky, and there is a slight difference, but conceptual or a different way of understanding has been there in the two cases. So one is that is a compensated demand curve which was introduced by Hicks. The compensated demand curve is a two-dimensional representation of the compensated demand function, which is x star is equal to xc, px, py, and utility function, which is what is we have already seen in the previous lectures in the derivation of all that. and holding the utility constant, you will get this thing, slope of px by py. In different combination you will get different thing. So quantity demand is also having a sort of change. But overall what we get is actually when the price increases, the quantity shrinks. When price falls, this is a standard demand and supply relationship, which what is earlier we talked. It is not actually something to do with the given or the inferior good case, which uh, we discussed. Now, when you have a compensated and uncompensated demand, somebody may be having a sort of confusion in that. So, when you have an x, which is maybe initially you have a px and x, that is your blue line, then you have a c, which is a compensated. Now, given that the cs and all, there is a possibility that there is a given price, and now the price changes. Once your price changes have definitely have an effect on the income, so that makes some portion of the commodity unaffordable, at least in a relative sense. So even if you want to actually make your demand equal or a par with what we had done earlier, then you have to have a compensation accordingly. That compensated demand function, or in this case that curve, definitely have a different elasticity in that sense, responsible, because now because of the change in price, the elasticity of the commodity is going to be changed. Therefore, when you make a new compensated demand, obviously it won't be exactly the same with that of the previous one. That is one of the difference which you have to keep in mind. So that is why at px double dash, the curve intersects, because the individual's income is just sufficient to attain utility level of u2. Therefore, some point you tilt, so at that point it remains as it is. So at other prices, other points in that difference in the elasticity, which never allows us to basically buy the same quantity even if we wish to buy. So at price above px2, that is what being shown here, that is above px2, the income compensation is positive because the individual needs some help to remain on u2 in that sense. So at the same time below also, at price below px2, income compensation is negative to prevent an increase in utility from a lower price in that sense. So that is why you at least stick upon certain point, at least to say that this is ensures as good as possibility. So for a normal good, the compensated demand curve is less responsive to price change than is the uncompensated demand curve. So the uncompensated demand curve reflects both income and substitution effect. The compensated demand curve reflects only substitution effect in that sense. So we had seen the earlier one, and if you look into the same line, compensated demand function, therefore suppose that only utility is given by this amount, then you can have different mechanism which gives you different levels of utility. Okay, so Marshallian demand function is in that sense is I by 2px, where y is equal to I by 2py. So indirect utility function give the different forms. So now when you have all this is in mind, to obtain the compensated demand function, we can solve the indirect utility function for I and then substitute into the Marshallian demand function, which is what we said in the previous lectures, and all the lectures of the demand which we have done is basically touching upon this aspect. So the demand, therefore I would like to basically not talk about much about these things because we have already seen. Now, what is the importance of the Slutsky equation? So the substitution effect can be written as substitution effect of the change in C, which is the compensated, with respect to Vs, which is equal to the delta x by delta dou x by dou px and u constant. And in this case, it is basically utility remains constant. There is a change in the utility in that sense. So the income effect can be written basically as the product of the change in the pricing. Okay, so note that when you have dou E by dou Px, which is equal to x, as $1 increases in price rises necessary expenditure by $x, and one extra must be paid for each unit of x purchased in that sense. So the utility maximization hypothesis shows that the substitution and income effect arising from a price change can be represented by substitution effect plus income effect. Okay, so this difference is basically initially, as I said in the beginning, that originally been understood and mathematically proved by Slutsky, and whereas the compensated demand curve is to show only what much is the substitution effect, and given that okay, when there is a price change takes place, naturally there are income effect, or of course your pocket will get either budged or reduced, shrunk. So this is what is actually been treated earlier, but now that is Hicks was trying to say only that substitution point, whether if you were compensated demand curve with the difference in the elasticity responsiveness of the commodity, how much you move towards the other commodity. So that is what is called the substitution. Or to buy the same commodity, whether you move towards the right or the left. So if you have less responsive commodity which you are consuming, then you move on the left, and the otherwise you will be moving on the right. So this is what is actually he was trying to. So the responsiveness also matters in that sense, to determine the nature of the consumption and the commodity in that sense. So whereas what Slutsky was making is the other way around. He is totally describing what is actually missed out in the original understanding of price change. So originally, if there is a price change, people normally being treated as your income increase. So price change is being equated as income. So now, what portion of income and what portion of the other commodity being chosen when there is a change in price is what is the concern which was being brought out by Slutsky originally, and there is what is actually given a lot of other possibilities of discussion, as well as basically um, um, different research on this aspect. So that is why the importance of the Slutsky equation is being treated as one of the best, one of the most important understanding in this field. So the first term is therefore the substitution effect, that is always negative as long as marginal rate of substitution is diminishing. This is a very, very important point to be noted. That is, when the commodity's marginal MRS, that is marginal rate of substitution, is diminishing, then naturally it will get negative effect on the substitution. That commodity is actually going to be lesser and less consumed. So this is what is in terms of even a normal commodity is therefore is a relative concept. This is what is very, very interestingly we need to be draw out of it. Why? Because if a normal commodity in that sense is relatively normal, why? Because if you are actually having a commodity like food or article or whatever, when you have a diminishing margin, if you don't have a diminishing marginal utility, then this is not going to actually having any effect on the substitute, because you will never actually substitute from that commodity. So it is going to have a fixed effect. Whereas if you have DMRS, then there is a possibility that you either move, depending on your price change, you move this side or that side. The slope of the compensated demand curve must be therefore negative on. So the second term is the income effect, that is what is the price change results, that is if x is a normal good, then dou x by dou I is greater than 0. So what does he is trying to do? Definitely if there is a price change occurs, then naturally you have a normal group. That is, suppose if there is a fall in a price of that commodity takes place, that means an increase in income is going to have the result. So relative what is going to have the effect, the entire income effect is going to be negative. That is, you have an income but you don't actually completely going to consume. If you have complete consumption, then you're going to exhaust the thing, then things will not be having a negative effect. Otherwise, they definitely have a negative effect. So if x is an inferior good, then dx by dy, so dou x by dou I is going to be less than 0. So the entire is actually positive. That is, if it is a inferior good is what is you are talking about, then if there is a price fall takes place, then what you are going to do is actually you are going to spend the entire amount to buy that commodity in that sense. Okay. So these are the kind of differences which is try to make when it comes to the case. So Cobb-Douglas case and all other things which we have already seen. And then the Hicksing compensated demand function also we have seen, and overall effect we have already understood. That's what is discussed. So this total effect is the sum of the two effects of Slutsky identified. So what is actually a price effect gives? It is a total effect of the substitution as well as the income. And now the responsiveness towards that commodity or the commodity's preference which was making by this particular individual is going to have a reflection in the a substitution as well as the income effect of that. So that will determine what is actually the nature of the commodity which they are consuming in that sense. Okay, so it is in fact connected. Let me skip all this. So you'll just check with the numbers, and you can basically uh, have a decomposition in that sense. Okay. So let me then now what is all this is trying to make is a kind of understanding which is about the elasticity. Okay. So in the classes of undergraduation and all, we had already discussed partly about the elasticity. Elasticity is nothing but the responsiveness towards the commodity. Okay, how the commodity responds. That is the quantity, the change in price. How much the change in price is going to have an effect on the change uh, quantity. So that is the responsiveness of the commodity with respect to price. So this is what is called the elasticity in that sense. So you have whatever we talked about is called the price elasticity of demand, which was earlier used to understand the effect before Slutsky. And of course, in the Marshallian understanding, all it is about all this difference has been explained in terms of the elasticity of demand. But now the substitution vis-a-vis the income effect things were all the later development, which was basic originally brought out by Slutsky. Though that is what is the importance of this understanding. Okay. So the elasticity, price elasticity, or what you call the own price elasticity of demand is always negative. The only exception is Giffen paradox, where it is going to be positive one. The size of the elasticity is important, where it can be less than one negative one, that is demand elastic, more than one demand inelastic, and then you have unit elasticity. So price elasticity and total spending is also given in the textbook. You can go and refer. If you have doubt, please get back to me. So the price elasticity and compensated price elasticity is nothing but the elasticity based on the compensated demand function, which we have discussed earlier. So again, you can actually cross refer the things, and compensated price elasticity I have already talked about, and the homogeneity and the things around the beginning we had discussed. And now there is a point which is called the Engels aggregation. This is based on the Engels law, suggests that the income elasticity demand for food items is less than 1. Okay, this implies that the income elasticity demand for all non-food item must be greater than 1. So this is what is called the Engels aggregation. So people, when income increases, this is what does it imply is the following. That is, when your income increases, uh, if it is a food item, in proportion to your income, you will buy lesser and lesser of the commodity which you consume. That is food items which you consume, because there is a limit for consuming food items for you when you have a proportional increase in the income on the contrary. But on the other side, not other commodities. For example, if your income increases, you may buy more than what is your income increases. You go for EMI and buying a mobile phone, a laptop, which is more than your income. You have an expected income and you are paying according. So in that sense, it is having a positive income effect or a non. So kind of understanding. With this, I think this lecture, these are not necessarily we discuss here. So with this one, what do we have covered in the last lecture? So now we had a portion which is about to finish, which is what is called the consumer welfare thing. Okay, so I think I'll take consumer welfare in the next lecture, consumer surplus and how do we understand consumer. Okay, with this, let me conclude the lecture. And if you have any doubt, please feel free to ask, and we will discuss. Because I don't want to have more repetition in that sense. Because we can basically move out of all that. Okay, so thank you for your patience, and let me stop.